Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me as we start the stream later than typical. I appreciate all of you being here, and additionally, thank you all for your patience as we start a little bit, not only later than usual, but also started the stream at the scheduled time a bit late, and then need to get things set up. So, not that many of you need to necessarily know everything, but just had some IRL work functions going on and kept me postponed. This is supposed to be a relaxing Dragon Age mix, but there's too many in the background. It's not gonna work. I don't want people singing. I want you to only hear my illustrious voice as we switch over screens here. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think I need to turn myself a little bit louder. There we go. How do I sound now? Probably too loud, right? We'll turn that down a bit. We always rely on Jonas here to give me the accurate depiction of how we're sitting with volumes, but I'm gonna hope that that's all right. Welcome, King. Welcome, Holly. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Bobby. First one here. Welcome, Arcane. Welcome, Red Wolf Renegade. And King Fanman. It's good to see you as well. King, I hope you've been doing well. It's been great to see you streaming again. I've been really glad to see that. You're doing a little better. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Because if anyone deserves to be feeling at their best, it's that man right there in chat, King Fanman. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. One of the first people I ever did anything collaboratively on YouTube with. I still think back to that day. Every single time I go to set up a stream, every single time I see a video do well, I always think back to King Fanman, who I attribute my start on the platform to. So, if anyone deserves it, it's him. Whiny beard man, don't talk about me that way, Holly. Don't talk about me as whiny beard man. I know I'm a whiny beard. I get it. I understand. I whine. I complain. I vent. But you need to call me out like that in my own chat. No. Thank you everybody for being here. So we're already an hour late, so I want to get right into my main topic for today. Well, I want to get into what's going on with BioWare, and specifically from the Dragon Age director. So for those of you who don't know who this guy is, we're going to be talking about him in a little bit. This is Mark Darrah. Mark Darrah was the former director for Dragon Age. He's the second most senior people within BioWare. We're going to be diving into all of that in just a little bit. But Holly, I saw your comment, and I have to say I heartily disagree. I heartily disagree for a couple of reasons. Because, first and foremost, what he said lines up almost perfectly. Uncannily so, and maybe not so uncannily. Because we've already heard about a lot of this stuff. We heard about a lot of this stuff from Jason Schreier when Jason Schreier did a very in-depth report on both Anthem's release as well as Mass Effect Andromeda's release. Very good expose pieces that were written about what BioWare went through during that time. And I'm going to be releasing a whole video on this. I have a whole video that's scripted, not ready to go. I need to record it, but it sort of dives into cross-linking everything that was said back in, I think those articles were written in about like 2017 or Mass Effect Andromeda came out in 2017, so this article was probably in 2018, and I forget when Anthem's release date was, but I want to say like 2019, 2020-ish, so probably about a year after that. And in those reports, we learned a lot about, it almost seemed like EA was the good guy, right? And I remember distinctly when those articles came out, a lot of people took pause, and they sort of looked at that and went, holy crap, EA's actually doing the right thing because BioWare doesn't have their act together. And it's interesting to see what Mark Darrah has to say about his time at BioWare, as well as what Jason Schreier said about those periods in BioWare's history, and how there's just wrong on all sides. It seems like BioWare really, really messed up. It seems like EA really, really almost instigated some of that to an extent, which was absolutely wild to see. And then in the middle of it all, what probably the saddest part about all of this is that you just had a studio that was multiple studios that were just trying to make good games. And that's probably the saddest part of all. King Fanman, thank you for the $3 super chat. Not even a comment there. Let's celebrate the first super chat on the live stream. I can do that? How do I do that? I don't know how to do that. It's probably a hidden option for you guys, but I apparently can celebrate the first super chat. But thank you, King Fanman, for the $3. Again, I'm glad you're doing better. I'm really, really glad you're doing better. Welcome, Lotus, as well. Lotus, it's good to see you. It's been a while. I hope that everything's going well with you too, Lotus, because I know that you were moving your company to an entirely different place, which I'm sure has been a massive headache, and I don't know what else is going on your end. I know that your absence has been noticed. So it's always appreciated when you're around, chiming in, commenting on streams. It's always noticed and appreciated. So I'm glad to see you here, and I hope that you've been doing okay on your end. And Lotus, thank you as well for the $20 super chat. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Not a comment either. Just Panda saying victory. Victory for you for being able to make one of these streams. So I'm going to save a little bit more about Marked Art in just a little bit, but first and foremost, I do want to dive into, I know it's the hot talk on the town at the moment, which is in fact going to be Grand Theft Auto. So I'm going to pull that trailer up so I can be running that in the background. The Grand Theft Auto new trailer just dropped. Of course, there was a delay for the release date. Oh, this is not the right screen right there. We want that right there. Those were old topics. So, Grand Theft Auto, of course, just released trailer number 2. They delayed the game. It's going to a release date next year in 2026. Nobody's surprised. And furthermore, oh, hey, Fark, how's it going, Fark? Hey, Jeremy, have you been bashing DeMarco? Yeah, it's what I do in my spare time, actually. When I'm out touching grass, I like to try to feel really in tune with nature. So I'll also as I grow my beard out so I can look like a sheep, apparently, according to Holly. So I can grow out my true sheep persona. Grand Theft Auto looks phenomenal. The level of detail, and I see people, you can just take this thing frame by frame and really see something new every time that you watch this trailer. It looks like a Grand Theft Auto game. First and foremost, I have to say, it looks like Grand Theft Auto, right? Which isn't a bad thing. It just speaks to the pedigree of Rockstar quality, which honestly is an insane extent to think about when you realize how high the bar is for any game that Rockstar releases, that they need to sort of meet this level of expectation. Spark you! Thank you for becoming a member. Welcome to DeMarco's Dudes. Yes, thank you for supporting the channel, and you also get access to a bunch of cool emotes now. Well, cool, maybe not cool to you, but there you go. Show them off. Show them loud. Show them proud. But welcome. Thank you, Fark, for the support on the channel. I really appreciate it. Lots of love for tonight's stream. Maybe I gotta begin them at 7 p.m. more often. But thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate it. Let me know what you guys are thinking. I saw that Arcane and Chris, you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. I think everybody's generally responding the same, that it just looks absolutely incredible. But the level of detail going on looks really good. Now, I don't think it's spoilery. Everybody is sort of... not Holly! Thank you as well for signing up to Marco's Dudes. Welcome my second channel member for this month. I think we had gifted ones from Chris, and we had gifted ones from Arcane, not Arcane, from Assassin. But thank you guys for being the first two to sign up on your own. I appreciate that. I think everybody generally thinks the same thing. The game looks absolutely incredible. No matter where you pause, even just the detail on the street, the lighting, right? It's hard to mess up. Of course, a lot of people looking, as we got to that scene right there, a lot of people look into the physics in the game. Really, really excited about the physics that's there. One thing that people keep coming back to is that the main protagonist, we have people doing pickup duty. Wonder if that's going to be sort of punishment, but you have the main protagonist. A lot of people think that he's going to be an undercover cop, which I could see, right? A little bit of a way out action going on, except maybe in reverse this time. She's getting out of prison naturally, and he's just there to sort of support it, right? But you could see even from the lighting, just sort of the sweat it looks like on his forehead, whether you're looking at the detail in the environments or the macro level of detail that is sort of on the character models and on their skin, and the way the textures, the clothing, the environments, the rooms, the weather, the what people are doing in the background, right? So one thing when we talk about Cyberpunk is that every NPC sort of just walks around and they just sort of seem like they're there to be there because they need to fill a space. But you look around at sort of what's going on with these people chatting in the background way off. And a lot of people like Lucia and what she's got going on, which to each their own. People in crowds, every single aspect here. The amount of different hairstyles as well, and NPCs, and the way that they all look completely and individual. Obviously, these guys are tied to the story in some capacity, right? That's some sort of cutscene there. But yeah, listen, it's a game that I think will probably be the game of absolutely 100%. It's going to walk away with almost every single Game of the Year award. But also, I think it'll sort of take away a lot of these games of the generation. I'm not the person that sort of looks at Grand Theft Auto, right? Grand Theft Auto, they did show with the new trailer, with the delayed release date, they did show off that, hey, this game is coming in 2026. It's coming to Xbox and PlayStation. So some folks were speculating. I was even on a show with WebDave and K, Mega, as well as Hargy. And Kay was swearing by the fact that, hey, this game is they're delaying it because it's going to come out on PC. Sorry, Kay. Everybody, it was 4 against 1. Even Paris joined that show. And even he turned around and was like, whoa, it's not happening. And it's not happening. But the explosions look cool too. I did notice one thing, if we really, really wanted to sort of critique what's going on here. I did notice, this is funny, right? Look, and you could say maybe this is lighting, but I think that's the windows breaking right there. But there's actually still reflections, and no, I think that's just lens flare there. So you go from like having the windows that look shattered, right? That's why you can't really see through them. It's not clear glass. And then, whomp, just gone. So if you really want to nitpick and go frame by frame, I haven't spent the time doing that, but that's the one thing that I noticed, because I did play this explosion sort of on a loop because it just looks really damn cool. Another member, welcome Red Wolf Renegade. Thank you for supporting the channel. 3 members. 3 new members. Thank you guys seriously so much for joining as one of DeMarco's dudes. Appreciate you having here. Yes, let's go. Please feel free to use those emotes. They sure plan. They absolutely are. Yeah, they absolutely are. They're playing. Listen. They know their audience. They know what they got going on. They know the type of people that play these games. It's not necessarily the reason why people play the games, but they know that it is an aspect of appeal for playing in Grand Theft Auto. Right, playing in that world, as you do have the sex appeal that goes on with these games. A lot of people have highlighted sort of these These beer bottles. Dudette. Dude, everybody, listen, everyone can be a dude. Everyone can be a dudette. I love seeing this stuff too, right? Not, you have sort of these characters partying on the boat. It looks like he's about to jump into the water. And I wonder if is the game going to be so detailed in such a way where you can just sort of sit on the shore here or sit along docks if they're available nearby. You see these guys out in the water and you see them jumping in. They go, they jump into the water. And then you see them splashing around and they come back up. Like, are the NPC schedules and their variation activities sort of that varied where you could just watch what they're doing throughout the day and you'll see, like, eventually they are, are these NPCs going to be here? And it's just the fact that it's a Rockstar game sort of makes you question. I think this is one of the coolest things about Rockstar games is it makes you question, like, okay, these NPCs that are chilling on this boat, are they just going to be chilling here? Or can you follow them throughout the day? Like, they go out on the water, they're partying, they're having a good time, then they sort of get back in, they bring the boat back. They're not there all day. They, you could follow them sort of through the street and see what they do. And do they have actual schedules? I don't expect it would be at that level, but the fact that it is a... There you go. See, you guys are getting it. Chris, you understand. Bobby, you understand. Jeremy, you understand. You guys all understand. But the fact that it is, welcome Slowlark as well. The fact that it is a Rockstar game makes you think, like, hey, is this possible? Even if it's not, no one's going to be like, oh, well, the NPCs are there partying on the boat all day. Grand Theft Auto sucks, right? No one's looking at it that, but it does make you question sort of how far are they pushing this technology. And I think that's an exciting thing. When games have gotten to such an extent where you're questioning, hey, can I follow this NPC from the party on the boat all the way back to their apartment somewhere in Vice City, right? Getting in their car and driving around. Maybe they go to the club after this. When you can question the level of detail, and games have gotten that advanced that that's the level of AI and programming that you're looking at, it's absolutely insane to me, right? How far games have come and how far they'll continue to go. And this is partially in game too. I remember that. I remember Red Wolf had called out sort of as this character. It's very similar to Red Dead Redemption, where this animation where you see them go in, he gives a little thing, opens the door, and then the camera kind of pulls back, and now you're in the gameplay. Right? This is what the transition would be to gameplay. And they did say that they're like Rockstar came out and confirmed. There's a lot of gameplay in this trailer, and I don't for a second doubt it. I think you could sort of see, like, this is probably a gameplay thing, right? They might be bringing back, which we talked about on Red Wolf Renegade show, the Renegade Run podcast. They're probably going to bring back the sort of body changes. If you work out, you get stronger, you get more buff. If you eat a lot of food, you get fatter. And if you don't sort of work out and exercise and run everywhere. So they're probably going to bring that back. But this is probably gameplay. This is in-game. This might be a specific... they might be working very particular camera angles to get the footage that they're getting, but I do think that a lot of this is actual gameplay that they're doing. So that's really cool. Other than that, it looks great. I'm not going to be playing it day one. I'm not one of those people that will double dip and buy it on console because I don't have... I have PlayStation 5, but... it is almost certainly going to be running at 30 frames per second. I want that high fidelity experience. And as excited as I am about this, I'm assuming that the online mode is going to release a lot later. The reason for the delay, now this was kind of interesting. The reason for the delay, there was a supposed Rockstar employee. Rockstar is incredibly strict about leaks, like crazy so. And it still happens anyway. It's hard to hide a game that's this big, especially when it's working across 4 or 5 different studios. Who knows? Well, somebody does, but it's running across this many different studios, and you're working with a ton of external vendors. That's usually where leaks come from, even with the Virtuos stuff, right? With Oblivion Remastered, when that started surfacing, it came from Virtuos's website. When you start working with all these external partners, that's usually when you start to see the leaks really come out. But what I will say is, allegedly a Rockstar employee came out and mentioned, hey, I know how I know how Rockstar tracks these leaks. I know what they look for. I know what they look at. I know how to keep myself clean and keep myself off the radar. They did, yeah, the opening character fixing leaks in the beginning as well. I forget what that actor's name is. That actor, the one who's playing the guy who says, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" I know him from Barry, the HBO show Barry, which was a really good show. But anyway, so he said, he's like, I know how Rockstar track. I mean, just let me pull this up for a second, because I mean, this is just the reflections. The reflections on the water, apparently Digital Foundry did an analysis. Apparently some of them are pre-baked. Some of them are using ray tracing. Ray tracing apparently turned on by default, but just, I don't know. The water has always, and how reflections handle on water always has fascinated me. But everything looks really good. Everything looks really, really good. So I'll keep it there. But allegedly, a developer at Rockstar said, I know how to cover my tracks, but he said the story mode of Grand Theft Auto 6 has been done for a while. Like, that has been finished, and in fact, they cut some things that they were working on as far as single player, because they're like, we need to make sure that the multiplayer is shipshape. Nobody is surprised that Grand Theft Auto Online is their main priority. I don't think anybody's shocked by that news. It just goes without saying, right? That's where the money comes from with Grand Theft Auto. It comes, yeah, they make a lot of profit, I'm sure, with the single player and just the sales of the game. But when they really think about revenue, Grand Theft Auto Online for GTA 5 and how they did shark cards completely changed the perspective on all of that. So what you end up getting is Rockstar is putting 1,000% into the multiplayer, the Grand Theft Auto Online. There's a question as to whether or not it's going, because of this delay, whether or not it will release in tandem with the game, or is it going to take a while for it to come out? There's an argument to be made that you're going to get your best market capitalization if you release at the same time. I beg to differ. I think with a game like Grand Theft Auto, it's the sort of thing when people make arguments, I can't think of one that comes to the top of my head, but you'll see it from time to time. People will go, "Oh, if such and such studio makes this decision, they're gonna hurt their sales." No, most of the time you could look at just the type of game that it is. For example, if Bethesda, here's one. If Elder Scrolls 6, if Bethesda doesn't, this is the common one. If Bethesda doesn't market the game for at least a year, then they're gonna hurt their sales. It's like, no, it's the freaking Elder Scrolls. It'll do fine. You don't need to worry about it, right? Grand Theft Auto, if they release the game and then a year later or 6 months later, they're like, oh, and here's the online component. We're releasing that now. It's not gonna hurt the online component. And they could do it 2 years. Maybe there's a couple players who are like, oh, I've kind of moved on and playing some other things. Maybe there's a handful. But the folks that Rockstar actually care about, the ones that are spending the money on shark cards, the whales, right? Those guys are coming to Grand Theft Auto Online whenever it launches. So Rockstar doesn't care. Rockstar doesn't care. They'll release it when it's ready, when they think it's ready. They'll release it when they think that their storefront is good to go, when they think that they have enough monetization incentives placed within the multiplayer mode that all function correctly, so they could capitalize on those GTA Online day one sales, not necessarily GTA day one sales. Let me catch up on chat for just a little bit. I want to go back. Let's play this trailer again. I'll let you guys tune into that. So we'll switch over here. Play that in the background as I go to a couple chats here. Visually, the game looks great, but I'd really like to know what's different, what's new. Or are we just going to get a prettier Grand Theft Auto? Would that have been worth the wait? Great question. I think ultimately what you're getting with a new Grand Theft Auto is the story, right? Rockstar Games, they have really talented writing teams. They've proven that with Grand Theft Auto 5, with Red Dead Redemption 2. Now I think they're going to hit the mark again with Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm not really doubting that. You're getting prettier. I think you're going to get a lot more advanced AI, and not just sort of in the way that, let me make sure the music is turned down a little bit. Not necessarily in the way that, oh, well, the AI will behave in combat better, but I think you're going to get a much more immersive simulation experience than you got with previous Grand Theft Autos, and primarily Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 did great. You'd hear people on the phone, they're walking down the street, they're doing daily activities. I think Grand Theft Auto 6 is sort of going to take that to the next level. And then as a result, your interactivity with the world is going to be a lot more engaging. I think they're going to have a lot more to do. You know, we're seeing that the map size is going to be 5 different districts. These districts incredibly diverse from one another. So I think that in regards to sort of, if you just want to live out your own life like those garbage picker-uppers that we're seeing on the side of the street, you can do that. You can go off and really, whereas what I imagine for Grand Theft Auto 6 is that if Grand Theft Auto 5 felt like sort of a live your life simulator, it's going to feel like a sandbox. Like, not like a sandbox game, but like a literal sandbox compared to the scale that Grand Theft Auto 6 is aiming for in regards to the level of immersion that you're able to accomplish. So I think in regards to that, you can really see the improvements. So that's my take. I'm interested to see if either Jason or Lucia, if they will act as a companion / follower. Probably. The way I imagine it working is a little bit similar to when you're in the open world. I imagine that it works similarly to Grand Theft Auto 5, where you could sort of switch between the two, and you could go and explore the world individually as either of them. And then when you get into story missions, you will get, you know, I think you mean a companion, like, will they follow you around? Yeah, because you said / follower. I don't know. I think they'll probably be doing their own thing. I think it'll tie back into a little bit of, again, like I said, like Grand Theft Auto 5 did. But I hope co-op is available in the single player. Probably not, Fork. Probably not. You should play it on PlayStation, DeMarco. I'm not going to double dip. I'm not going to double dip. Sorry. Listen, if someone wants to get me PlayStation, Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation, fine, I'll play it on PlayStation. But otherwise, I'm not double dipping. I'm sorry. I'm not that big enough of a Grand Theft Auto fan. I've never completed the story in Red Dead Redemption 2. I've never finished the story in Grand Theft Auto 5. I did a surprising amount of GTA Online, though. Never paid for shark cards, but I did a surprising amount of GTA Online. I had a lot of fun doing just sort of the random activities that you could do in that. But no, I'm not that big enough of a fan. Me too, Jeremy. I play more Red Dead than GTA personally. I play more Grand Theft Auto, which is interesting because I feel as though the historical setting of Red Dead is something that would appeal to me as someone who likes the fantasy RPGs, you know, that kind of likes what those games have. But no, in this case, I actually think I prefer the modern set and being able to run around, drive the cars. But I think, as far as I understand, Red Dead Redemption 2's story really is just worth everything. Fingers crossed it happens, Slowlark. Angry Joe got his video. Yeah, I did watch Angry Joe and what he said regarding the copyright claims, which was absolutely insane. The stories are so good. RDR2 was years beyond GTA 5, being able to follow NPC, coming across environmental storytelling. If they do something similar where you come across random encounters, they didn't do much of that in GTA 5. No, they did some, but not a lot. I think they could definitely expand on that. And I think arguably that is sort of the direction that they're going to.
You violated the law.
Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence. Your stolen goods are now forfeit. Then pay with your blood. I'll get it one day. I'll get it right on. GTA has always had the ability to hang out with friends. I imagine in GTA 6, you can hang out with either Jason, Lucia, and have them follow you. The question... That's a good point. That is a really good point, actually, Red. I forgot the fact that you could sort of... Grand Theft Auto 4 did that more, didn't it? Where you kind of call them up. You're like, hey, Nico, let's go bowling. Nico, want to go bowling? Nico, come on, and it's your buddy. Let's go bowling. I imagine that you'll be able to go bowling with Lucia. I imagine, hey, look, there's a Push Start podcast right there and suggested videos. Let's go say hi. Oh, this stupid content creator getting ads. All right. Anyway. So, I think that's about all I have to say for GTA. Yeah, I think Chris, just to finish that thought, they'll probably expand. I think that's one of the areas that Grand Theft Auto will expand. Is it gets a little bit more of the real world stuff going on. So anyway, bring the legendary creatures. I wonder how they would do. You could have legendary gators, probably, right? Because you're gonna have that whole sort of swampland stuff going on, right? With the Florida Keys or the Ever whatever Florida Everglades. Someone doesn't have YouTube Premium. No, I do not have YouTube Premium. No, sir. Which is funny because actually YouTube Premium is better for content creators. If you have YouTube Premium and you watch a content creator, it's actually better. So Chris, funny thing, I actually have a friend who works in the Everglades and they wrestle pythons. They take, because pythons are an invasive species there. So they wrestle alligator. Well, they used to wrestle alligators. They don't anymore, but they used to work in that park. And then in their spare time, now what they do full time actually is they go out and they capture and hunt pythons that they remove from the Everglades because it's an invasive species. So I know a person, I could go down there and do that IRL if I wanted to next week. 3 hours north of there. That's cool. I actually haven't been there myself, other than sort of stopping nearby at hotels as I'm passing through. But as far as I know, Chris, you had a bit of, I know you've told me a little bit about how, your kind of upbringing, what you experienced back then. So I don't know, is it accurate? Like, am I gonna? I think you said it in chat before, but you're gonna really be able to sort of experience what life is like in that area, and what it was and what it is modern. It's going to be a modern day Florida. The whole game's just going to be Florida Man, which I think is kind of what all of us are hoping for. Haven't been any further south than Fort Myers. I'm curious then if sort of what these other areas in the game for you, a Florida native, if you will, at least where you're raised. They nailed the vibes. There you go. So I'm curious what some of those other areas as well. Like I think one area was it was a refinery plant or something. They were doing like salt or something. But I'm curious if sort of those other areas really do other areas, sorry, smacked my microphone, really do capture it equally as well. All right, so I want to move on to the thumbnail for today's video. Dara on Games. Dara on Games, Mark Dara, he made this really interesting video where he talked about his experience working on Dragon Age. And he's retired now, but he was formerly the director for Dragon Age, and he retired. He did come back as a consultant for Dragon Age The Veilguard. He was not technically employed. He worked at BioWare between 1997 to 2021, and then also, for The Veilguard served as consulting. What is really interesting about this is he talked specifically about 2017. He said 2017 was the year that really, really crippled BioWare. And he goes through the launch of Mass Effect Andromeda. He talks about how BioWare started reporting to somebody new. We just got another ad. Thank you. Enjoy your revenue there, Dara. He talks about how BioWare started reporting to somebody new, which was interesting. Apparently, this had been reported in the past, and I probably had heard it at one point and forgot. But BioWare used to report to someone within EA Sports division, the sports side of things, which was really, really crazy. He talked about how Dragon Age was always, and this is something we heard before. There were other folks at BioWare, specifically Mike Gator, who worked at BioWare, and they explained that Mass Effect was always the favorite team. BioWare within EA was always sort of this ostracized part of the company. Like EA never really quite knew what to do with them. Never knew how to handle them. never understood the type of games that they made. And it was really unfortunate because, of course, BioWare having the pedigree that they did, it's like, why would you buy them? You know the games that they're making, Jade Empire, Knights of the Old Republic, like, you know what they're making. Why are you buying them if you don't understand their product fully? But it is what it is. And basically what he goes on to explain is how, for Dragon Age especially, because Mass Effect was always the favorite, how Dragon Age was always clamoring for resources and was always trying to get just whatever they could. But this period in 2017 where you were balancing the launch of Mass Effect Andromeda and the support that that game needed after launch, then you also had it combined with Anthem, which was being worked on, while also combining that with working on the next Dragon Age. And all three of these studios are looking and trying to get resources for development. They're trying to get the development team that they need, especially when the most interesting thing behind all of this is it seems as though it's coming from multiple different avenues. Because on one hand, you have EA that forced BioWare to use Frostbite Engine, and the common thread between each of these games when they were in development, whether it was Andromeda, whether it was Anthem, whether it was, I think Dragon Age Inquisition was the first game to run on Frostbite, the common thread that ran between all of them was Frostbite. Frostbite crippled their development because they sort of explain this, that Frostbite, it's like, engines excel at different things. And Frostbite, and we've heard this before, Frostbite was really good at making these first-person shooter games with limited scope, with limited scale, with smaller worlds. Now you're trying to juxtapose that, or you're trying to layer that into an open-world RPG. It just doesn't work, and yet they were forced to do it. So now you have issues with, you're trying to release Anthem, or you're trying to release Mass Effect Andromeda. You need specific developers, A, that know Frostbite, but B, that can help to overcome some of those hurdles. With Mass Effect Andromeda's case, it was animation. Animation and getting all that to work. And we saw the memes and the GIFs of all the terrible facial animations that were done in that game. They largely attribute it to Frostbite. So you have developers that are struggling to make this work. So what's EA going to do? Well, EA is going to say, shoot, you guys are struggling, a problem that they themselves caused. All right, let's just take people from this team over here at BioWare, and we're going to move you over there, and you're going to help out. And often at times, this came from the project that needed the least amount of help. In a lot of instances, it was Dragon Age, because Dragon Age Inquisition had just launched. It did really well. They know that Mass Effect's coming next. They know that Anthem's coming after that. Or Casey Hudson came back and said, hey, we're doing Anthem. But so they go, oh, well, BioWare isn't going to release a Dragon Age game, so let's just pull everything from Dragon Age, and we're going to say, let's move it on to help out with Anthem. The assumption being, once Anthem releases, that now Mark Dara is going to be able to get those team members back, that they're going to say, hey, you guys will come back and you'll work on Dragon Age. And what actually happened was, he explains that the studio lied. There's a segment in here, a message to Montreal. So Montreal was the team that was responsible for developing developing Mass Effect. And then after Mass Effect Andromeda, and then after Mass Effect Andromeda was done, those team members would go to work on Mark Dara's team. Meanwhile, Edmonton, which was considered the main team, was working on Anthem, and that was headed by Casey Hudson when he returned in 2017. He came back. He left in 2014, and then came back. So what happened, again, was now that team that was supposed to go to help out with Dragon Age, well, now Anthem is in serious trouble. So they're going to send all those guys to Anthem. But apparently EA lied, because there's a section in this video where it's just this whole thing right here from 8:26 to 11 minutes titled A Message to Montreal. And in this section, he says, I am sorry to anybody who's been mad at me for the past since 2017. I'm sorry for anyone who's been mad at me because EA lied to you guys and said to that team, Dragon Age team doesn't need you. Dragon Age team doesn't want you. There's no room for you over there. So you guys are going to go do this other thing. And they were the entire truth was hidden from them. So there's a lot of schemy stuff going apparently on EA's side of things. Counter to that, there's also reports, if you really start diving into this rabbit hole, there's also reports that say that these teams did not get along. That if you were on the Dragon Age team, you were on the Dragon Age team. That if you were on the Mass Effect team, you were on the Mass Effect team. And these teams did not get along when they did try to move over. So, for example, they brought over Gator. Gator came over to help with the narrative on Anthem. And he explicitly said he has a whole thread of they're not tweets, but posts on Blue Sky. And he mentioned how they did not, that team, which at the time was based in Montreal, I'm sorry, in Edmonton or Montreal, the team that he started working on for Anthem's development, which would have been Edmonton, for Anthem's development, they did not want him there. And as soon as he started making changes, they were like, this is too Dragon Age, this is too fantasy, like, why are you working on this game? Meanwhile, one of the developers at BioWare had said, make this more of a science fantasy game. But meanwhile, Gator got all the slack for it. So you could see that I'm sort of all over the place with my presentation of this information. But that's because that's just of how much of a mess it was at BioWare too. So BioWare has internal infighting where they don't get along with one another. EA is lying to BioWare about the things that are going on, and they're just moving people around to teams thinking, hey, we're doing a great job, we're helping. They might have just been trying to salvage whatever development they could, because in 2016, Patrick Soderlund had actually gone to see what was going on with Anthem's development. And he tried a demo of the game, and he was like, this is terrible. What did you guys do? This is horrible. And then he started getting more involved, which is around the same time that Mark Dara explains that BioWare started reporting to someone new, someone who was very heavily invested, right? It was probably because of Anthem's terrible, crippled development. And so everything was all over the place. You had infighting at BioWare, you had EA getting more involved, you had EA making decisions like turning Dragon Age into a live service game. And then at the same time, we already know from the in-depth report that Jason Schreier did that Anthem completely lacked direction. So the reason why EA started getting more involved in the first place was because BioWare had no clear direction with wherever the hell this game was going. Where they were changing things, nobody was making executive decisions, leadership was leaving during the project, it was an absolute mess. So this is a very interesting video that he did. Again, Holly, I know that you said you think he was whining because Veilguard, because Veilguard didn't do well. He left before he saw, at that point, he saw the writing on the wall and he's like, I'm getting out of this. He helped as a consultant for BioWare, for Veilguard. I honestly think he was sort of working with whatever he could get, because at that stage, it had already gone through it was on its third iteration. It went through Morrison to Trevor, whatever, into the final stage, right? It went from its original vision where you played as Tevinter Spies, then it went to the live service, then it went out of the live service to the version that we ended up getting. So I think he was just working whatever he got. I think he understands it was a sinking ship because he worked alongside people. He worked alongside Laidlaw, and Laidlaw left. He even mentions in this video the guy that they used to report to within the sports side of things. Dara went and had a conversation with that guy, and that guy was like, how the F are you still here when Dragon Age is getting treated this way? Like, you have zero help what are you still doing here? So he was confronted with all of this for a while. Every turn that this man tried to stand up for Dragon Age, he got bit in the back. It eroded trust with EA proper. So I do believe him. I think his story is true. It's interesting when you kind of look at the other side, right? Because he kind of exemplifies how isolated the Dragon Age team was. Even in it, there's a little thing, even in the comments of this video, there's one that he responded to. Someone had said, like, hey, can you please talk a little bit about the development of Mass Effect? He's like, I don't have anything to say about Mass Effect. So these teams were so isolated, operating in these bubbles, that I think the saddest part of anything going on here is you had a Mass Effect team, you had the Anthem team, you had the Dragon Age team, and at the end of the day, all these guys were trying to do was make a damn good game. And they couldn't get their act together internally. Externally, they were getting screwed by the decisions that were being made externally outside of BioWare. And so nothing, just everything involving BioWare sort of kind of spelled out a recipe for this isn't going to work. And it's a team that lost a lot of talent. It's a team that was really, really competent that kind of got bled from both the inside and the outside. And I'm going to have a full video where I dive into this a little bit deeper. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it, if I'm being honest. But I will be diving into a video on this and sort of my thoughts and feelings and kind of explain the situation a little bit more. So do keep an eye out for that. I want my $60 back for Anthem. Bobby, yeah, I don't blame you. It was supposed to have a 10-year plan and it lasted 2. So there you go. I can't believe I was excited for Anthem back in the day. I was never excited for Anthem. I thought I just when I saw that, I remember when I saw that demo for Anthem and they had like that fake conversation going on, and it's like, oh, and it was just online live service from BioWare, and I went, really? This is what Casey Hudson wants to do? He wants to do this like I liked Anthem. And Chris, you're not alone in that. A lot of people did. A lot of people saw like, hey, it was a fine game. It was muddled by a bunch of other stuff that was going on. You know, some things that were not so great about the game, I know, but I think generally speaking, the game, it wasn't like when Anthem released, it didn't say it. People didn't come out and go, Anthem sucks. The reception to Anthem was, it's good. It was a very lukewarm response to the release of Anthem. So it wasn't bad, but I don't feel so confident for the next Mass Effect game. It's funny that you say that because arguably this next Mass Effect seems like the only opportunity for BioWare to finally get their act together. So that's where I kind of end the discussion on that video, on the video I'm working on, which is to say that Dragon Age Inquisition released, it had a lot of issues with Frostbite. Its issues with Frostbite sort of hindered and bled into the release of Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda struggled because it didn't have a creative vision. The leadership left. Casey Hudson left while that game was being developed. That was in 2014. So he left while that game was kind of it probably needed him the most. This is where, and Mark Darrow explained this is the first time that BioWare set the precedent that Mark went on to assist for a little bit, but he went on to assist to get Andromeda out the gate because leadership had left. There was a vacuum, and so he went in to fill in that role, at least for a little bit. But you did have, all the while there's infighting between the teams that's going on at this point. So Mass Effect Andromeda didn't have clear direction. You had the guy who was leading the project when it first started, was his resume was working on Activision's Spider-Man game. And then he came in, was like, we're going to do this really cool thing. We're going to have infinite planets. And it's going to be like No Man's Sky, but with a narrative of a BioWare game. And like conceptually go, okay, that sounds cool. People said the same thing about Starfield. It's like, oh, we can have 1,000 planets and it's going to be with that Bethesda DNA. And they're really going to be able to capture that feeling of a Bethesda game. For a lot of people, myself included, they didn't. Sorry, Bethesda, when you go to that scale, it just doesn't work. BioWare was originally going to do the same thing, and guess what? It wasn't going to work. So they scaled it back to eventually what Andromeda ended up being. But this guy came in, and he's like, we're going to do all these plans. We're going to do this. We're going to do vehicles and space combat and all this other stuff. And they were like, we can't do all this. We can't. And the game was effectively made in, I think it was like 16 months or 18 months. The game was made in 18 or 19 months. So all the crunch that went into Andromeda, that then impacted Anthem's development, because then Casey Hudson comes back and he takes a whole chunk of the team and he says, all right, we're going off and we're going to go work on Anthem. And the Mass Effect guys are like, wait, what? And the Dragon Age guys are like, wait, what? And Casey Hudson goes off and he takes his team. And that's going to affect Dragon Age the Veilguard. Dragon Age the Veilguard, at the time, Dreadwolf, was impacted because now Mark Dar wasn't getting resources because everybody now had to go off. They had to fix Mass Effect Andromeda. Now they have to go off and fix Anthem. So now the Dragon Age guys are left like, what the hell? And that's coupled by the fact that EA said, make it a live service game. So they had to completely reboot their development, which is part of the reason why the Montreal team didn't go back to help Dragon Age, right? They went and they did other stuff, was because they were like, well, you're rebooting the game anyway, so you don't need to help at the stage of development. They did. But you effectively have, so now Dragon Age Dreadwolf is getting impacted because they're not getting the support they need. They're not getting the support they need, so now they have to reboot the game. They have to reboot the game, but they're still not getting the help that they need. Finally, Veilguard releases. Mixed reception. It's out there. Probably didn't, we know it really didn't do that well as far as sales go. Veilguard's out there. It's out in the open. And they're not doing any DLC for it. They said, we're not bothering. That's it. It's over. Mass Effect with Mike Gamble returning, and Mike Gamble has been on board for a while. This is one of the core differences with Mass Effect 5, and this is why I have some hope for it. And I actually did make a video about this. You can go check that out if you're cautiously optimistic for the next Mass Effect. That's fine. I did make a video recently-ish, my last Mass Effect video they made, but Mike Gamble has been on this project for a while. They have a lot of veterans that are working on the series as well. That have returned to help with this next Mass Effect game. And it seems like that team, we know that BioWare had some layoffs after Veilguard came out, so they were pivoting to make a more agile team and refocus their efforts, so that we've heard the PR speak before. They laid a bunch of people off. They got a smaller, more concise team, which is good for game development. But now you have that smaller team. They're working on the next Mass Effect game. Mike Gamble has been the leader. He's been the head of the project. He's been the head of the project for a while. So that creative vision that's there, that core senior staff, they've been on since day one. And that in and of itself, I think, is a massive boon. But now that they've had that team working on the game, this dedicated Mass Effect team, we know that Mass Effect gets more love than Dragon Age does, just because EA likes it better. They're not having to pivot development because they're not being told by EA to make it a live service game, then don't make it a live service game. So the creative vision for this is set as far as we know. I'm sure we'll hear some development horror stories as well for this one. But as far as we know, this development is a bit cleaner. And it's the first game in like 10 years since Dragon Age Inquisition, which I think was 2014. The first game in over 10 years coming from BioWare where it seems like it's not going to be impeded by the game that came before for the first time in 10 years. So I think that's a massive deal. If you want more discussion on that, again, you can check out my last Mass Effect video that I made. It's all there for you. And then EA came back and said, don't do it. Yeah, they did. The car next to me has an N7 sticker. What are the odds? Whoa! That's awesome. I love that. I should have been wearing my N7 jacket, actually. You could say that they were isolated, but people constantly made big decisions to make that game what it was and had others in the studio support it. Yes, you did have others that were supporting that decision, but I think part of the issue, again, was nobody knew what the hell was going on with development of that game. right? So I'm just going to put a hypothetical out there, which is to say that finally somebody, who was it? It was, she's gone now. She left. Dreadwolf director. What was her name? There was Mac Walters. Who was the woman that was on that? Dragon Age director Mac Walters. I guess he was in charge, but there was a woman that was sort of kind of the face of the game. It wasn't Mac Walters. Can I find it really, really quickly? No, I can't find her name. But anyway, so if someone stepped in finally, right? Development, they don't know what they're doing. They were told by EA to do something, then not to do it. Nobody knows what's going on. We already saw with both Andromeda and especially with Anthem. Jason Schreier's report talks Corrine Bush. Thank you, Corrine Bush. Yes, her. So Corrine Bush finally steps in and she's like, "This is what we're doing." Right? So we know with Anthem, it's in Jason Schreier's reporting of these articles where he mentioned that they would sit in a meeting, they would be discussing some gameplay design feature, and they'd be like, yeah, they'd be tossing around ideas, and they go, yeah, it's probably good. Yeah. Okay, good meeting, everybody. And they would leave, and nothing was settled. Nothing was settled, and people were like, how? We can't get anything done. Someone needs to just make a decision and stand by it. We can't just keep talking about the problems. So if Corrine steps in and she's finally the person that's like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and she brings some actual leadership, now finally people aren't going to question that. They're just going to turn around and go, okay, this is what we're doing, this is it, this is this decision. So we don't know what was going on internally, and on top of that, there was the pressure to get the game out the door. Management, that's what I'm saying. So it's not, that's why I think this whole story of BioWare is so interesting to me, because it's not just EA. Because again, EA, when EA said they were getting more involved, when Patrick Soderlund was like, I'm getting more involved, well, we heard this post-mortem, but when they said we're getting more involved with Anthem's development because BioWare was not doing it, we were like, holy heck, EA's the good guy. EA's the hero in this story. EA's the reason why we actually got a game out, which is not what we normally say about EA. So it's not just EA being the bad guys. BioWare did not help themselves. And that's why I find this whole situation so fascinating. However, was it the decisions that EA made as the leader, right? They're at the top and their influence needs to come down, right? You need to see that coming from the top down. The values of the company. Did EA put them in a position that started to cause that infighting? Where these teams started to hate each other? Maybe. They sort of planted the seeds where they destroy BioWare from the inside, so to speak. And I don't think it was intentional. I don't think EA's sitting there saying, how can we sabotage BioWare so they mess up and where we could come in and save them? No one's sitting in a boardroom thinking that. But it's just the culture of that company. How, and EA especially, how they come in, and Mark Darrow's words, they come in, they digest it, and then they spit out what's left. And so, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg situation? Was BioWare always sort of just going in this wrong direction because they had poor senior leadership that wasn't making up their mind? Or did EA kind of set the precedence of not having clear direction that then flooded into BioWare? It's an interesting situation. Bush was a huge problem. Yeah, she was. But that's what I'm saying, right? So finally, for the first time, you do have someone who's coming in and stepping in and saying, this is the direction we're taking the game. And people are just relieved that they have a direction, period. That the game's actually moving somewhere. Easy to make EA the scapegoat, but they're both to blame. Yeah, exactly. They're like, how can we kill off Dragon Age so we have Mass Effect? Yeah, I don't really get this whole fantasy thing. So, like, let's just make the sci-fi game. So if we kill Dragon Age, then all we'll get is Mass Effect. Big brain move for EA. I feel like once you get away from the department heads and start getting into the VP roles, they aren't actual gamers. It depends, right? Because you look at someone like Sven Vink at Larian. That man is a gamer. That man's a gamer. Gamer. He loves it. You look at Daniel Vavra from Warhorse Studios. That man is a gamer. And that's what, like, for example, Bethesda used to be. All of that 100-person team in Bethesda, when it was ages ago, Oblivion, they were all gamers and they were trying to make a good game. And that's why Expedition 33 did as well as it did. Because the writer was this random person who worked in finance, apparently. Like a stockbroker. And then she just said she had a vision. She had an idea for a story. She's like, I could do this. Right? But she had an idea for a compelling story that fit within the video game medium. That's why Blue Princess is good, because that's just a gamer making a good thing. That's why something like Stardew Valley or Undertale or Expedition 33, that's why we're celebrating and championing games like Warhammer Space Marine 2 and Helldivers, because they're just like, let's make a fun game. Hey, does this game have everything? No. That's why, a little bit of news for everybody. Mafia, the old country Mafia, the new Mafia game coming out. It's a linear story-driven game. I'm excited for Mafia. I was before. It looked really good, but now I'm really excited. It's a $50 linear focused story-driven narrative game. And when I see that, it's just that $50 price point, right? That $50 price point, for some reason, it seems everything that says we're going $50, that's just a golden egg right there. You're like, those guys, buy, wishlist it, buy it, pre-order that. Like, you see that type of stuff, and you go, hey, these guys, they're not charging the full $70. So you know that these guys are not in it just to make the most amount of money that they can with their product. They're in it because they say, hey, we think this is a great game. It's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more contained, but we're really excited about it. So hey, we just want you to play it. We're pricing it at $50. Just try out our game. Boom. Signed up. You got me. And I think we're going to continue to see more of that. And I'm curious if the AAA scene, right? Because now Microsoft's saying, oh, we're going to do $80 games. And everybody's kind of giving the finger to Microsoft. Everybody kind of gave the finger to Sony, to Nintendo too, but those consoles sold out, the Nintendo Switch too. So all the good that complaining did, right? So people will still buy these games. We know, anecdotally, historically, we know that people still go out and buy these games. But I'm curious if the AAA industry as well, if Microsoft is going to say, hey, we have The Elder Scrolls 6, and that's $80. That'll suck. But they say, hey, we also are doing, because now Microsoft owns Bethesda, right? So Microsoft says, hey, we're also doing this spin-off. What I've always wanted is a tactics game in the Elder Scrolls universe. Like an XCOM, I think would be cool. Or like a Total War or something. Not Total War. Like a Age of Empires type game, right? Those real-time strategy in the Elder Scrolls universe. I've always wanted to see that. And they say, we have this spin-off thing coming out. That's going to be $50. And so the AAA, but it's made by a AAA studio, not an indie dev. So I'm curious if that's what the future is going to be. But I think it's really bright. we're definitely seeing more variable pricing going forward, which honestly, it's going to be a huge testament to the quality of these games, because these $50 games are kind of outperforming these $80 or these $70 ones in a lot of cases. I mean, I think about, yeah, we've had some phenomenal ones, but when I think about the indie titles and the lower priced games that have been coming, those are more exciting to me than any of these AAA titles. A few of them here and there, right? Grand Theft Auto is going to be one. Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be another AAA title I'm really excited for. They're out there. They're out there, but as of recent history, when I think about the games that really left an impression on me, Baldur's Gate 3 was $60, I think, right? Space Marine 2 was either $50 or $60. Expedition 33, $50. This new Mafia game, $50. Blueprints, probably like, what, $20 or $30? I will gladly pay $50 and $60 than I would $80. And most people are the same way, right? At the end of the day, people are going to buy less games, and we've heard that before, but that's how it's going to be. So, Revenge of the Savage Planet came out today too. I've never played. That's like a sequel, right? Or a prequel? Like that's part of a franchise? Savage Planet? I've not played that. But hey, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Anyway, that's my show for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want to especially thank we have Red Wolf Renegade, $5 super chat, thank you, as well as channel membership, That Blue Number, Lotus Esprit for generous super chat, King Fanman as well. That we have That Blue Number, Fark U, and Red Wolf Renegade, all channel members. So thank you guys for that level of support. I greatly appreciate it. And I will be back next week with more, and ideally I will bring on a co-host, and we'll hopefully do it at our normal scheduled time. I'm still playing around with the formatting, as you've seen with the last couple episodes. I've kind of had the full camera because I like that it's a kind of a dialogue. But I do think that I'm going to probably switch to a different format going forward somehow, at least visually how I present it. We'll see. I'm always playing around with different things. But thank you all so much for being here, for hanging out with me on this Thursday night. Next week will be Chris. Oh, what is that doing down there? Get up here. We want that right in the center of the screen. Thank you, Chris. $10. It's my daughter's birthday weekend this weekend. Chris, got accepted into a school, got accepted into a program, right? Just a little while ago. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for the 10. I didn't forget about you. Thank you for my birthday gift. I'll take my birthday gift there. But please wish everything and the happiest for your daughter. Congratulations to her for making it. Yet another evolution around the sun. And congratulations too. I remember a while back that you said she got accepted into, I want to say a school program, for EMT. That was it. EMT. I knew it was something. She got accepted. So very, very massive congratulations. And I hope that if she has started it so far, that she's really enjoying it, and happy birthday to her as well. That's super exciting. I hope that you do something really, really fun together. Have some cake, enjoy yourself, go out somewhere, make it a special day. She deserves it. You deserve it. Everybody deserves a good day. But thank you as well for the $10 super chat. So, it's been a wonderful evening. Love spending it all with you. It's one of my favorite days of the week that I look forward to. So thank you guys. If you're looking for additional content, you can actually go check out the Renegade Realm podcast on Red Wolf Renegade's channel. I also just was part of the Gamers Council with Web Dave, and that was a lot of fun. And then additionally, I joined the happy birthday to her. Yeah, next school year. Additionally, I did Gamers. I was on too many shows. Gamers Council, and then I was also on a show with Holly, that was on Sunday. Was it Sunday night, Holly? Or was that Friday night? Or Saturday night? I did a lot this weekend. Lots of podcasts. I'm just gonna stare and wait for her to answer. Anyway, Friday. Thank you. Friday on the Xbox Infinite podcast, right? Yes, Xbox Infinite podcast. So you can check out the Xbox Infinite podcast. You can check out Gamers Council from Dave. And then you can also check out the Renegade Realm podcast as well. Holly's my booking agent. You might as well be at this point. You might as well be. The Infinite podcast to Marco. I'm going on everything. So, thank you. Happy birthday again. I'm always terrible at ending these things. Happy birthday again to your daughter, Chris. I hope it's wonderful. Tell me what you're going to do. I look forward to hearing about it a little bit. But anyway, have a wonderful night to each and every one of you. Thank you for the support. New channel members. Welcome, guys. DeMarco's Dudes.